what are the common mistakes you have seen people make when they put in applications to come study in the US?
Okay, so yeah, the common mistakes.
Okay, hello guys, welcome back to Chilo Talks. My name is Chioma. I'm a Nigerian currently living and studying in Japan. And on my channel, I talk about my life as a foreign student in Japan. I do some lifestyle vlogs here and there. And most importantly, I talk about scholarships. And because I'm in Japan, most of my videos have been revolving around Japan, but I've decided to use this platform to go all the way down to America. So today I have with me Cyril Nyanke. He's a Ghanaian, currently living and studying in America, precisely Birmingham, and he's a PhD student. So I'd love him to more like run through the process of securing scholarship in America, the easy mistakes people make, frequently asked questions he has, because I know his DM is full, and some hints and advice generally to people who are looking towards getting and walking through that path that you're on. So help me welcome Cyril. Thank you very much for being here.
And thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, can you briefly explain, maybe briefly introduce yourself, maybe?
all right. Yeah. So my name is Cyril, just as Choma stated, and I'm from Ghana. I had my high school education at the St. Peter's Senior High School in the Eastern Region, Ghana. Then from there, I went to the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, where I pursued a Doctor of Optometry degree. So I graduated in 2015, and then I worked for a year. So shortly after that, I moved to the Harvard Medical School Department of Ophthalmology at the Scapins Eye Research Institute. So over there, I did a postdoc fellowship for 2 years. And during my time there, I was doing research that had to do with humans. And so I didn't find it very interesting. And then I decided to go ahead to pursue a PhD. And for my PhD, I'm doing it in vision science at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And specifically, I'm trying to understand how the eye sees and how the brain tries to delineate the signals it gets from the eye. Yeah.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so can you just like run through how the scholarship, the whole thing works in the US, scholarships, elections, schools, mistakes people make, frequently asked questions, how you got yourself generally in America?
Okay, so basically, if you want to come to the US, there are certain things you would want to consider, which are almost always the same. That is writing your GRE, it's an exam, and also writing your TOEFL exam. However, some schools do not really consider GRE. So my advice is you would always have to write to the graduate school, that's the program managers, and ask them, do they require GRE for their program? Some would explicitly state it in their program description, but some will be silent about it. But when you ask, you get the information. And with TOEFL also, even though most schools would ask for it, from my experience, it might not be necessary to really go ahead to take it. You still have to write to the program managers and explain to them that you had your basic education, like in my case, from an English-speaking country, and then
Wow.
the mode of communication is English, right from primary to the university, and it's even the official language for business and working. So I explained that to them, and so they waived TOEFL for me. So I think it's also one thing that people would have to do. You would have to write to them and ask, would they take TOEFL because you did your studies in English? And so they would usually ask you to submit an English proficiency certificate or letter. And for me, in my school, you take it from the English department. So most schools have a system in place. I mean, most universities in Africa, they have a system in place where you can get that letter. And the letter basically just states that you had your education in English and that you can speak English. That's all about it. And you submit it to the school. Now, when it comes to funding, it varies a lot, even for master's and for PhD programs. So I would say about half of master's programs would come with funding, about half will not. And
Oh,
yeah, and it's also one important thing you would have to do. You would have to ask. And so with most US applications, you have to engage a lot with the program managers, because some schools, for example, within the application for a graduate school program, would have the funding listed in the application portal. Others are such that you'd have to apply separately. So you apply for your program and you apply for funding separately. Yeah. So with most US applications, you have to engage a lot with the program managers to know exactly how to go about funding, whether you're applying separately for funding or it's within the application. Now, the most common types of funding you'll get for master's programs is either by being a research assistant, a TA, or probably an administrative assistant. So they have these three. And with administrative assistant, you would probably work in the library or something for 20 hours or so. And then the school would take care of your tuition. They'll give you a stipend and also pay for your health insurance. So these things are mostly handled by the schools, the universities. And from my experience, one thing I've realized is that if you are in the sciences, that is, if you're not taking any health professional program, but you took the physical sciences courses like chemistry, physics, math, etc., the probability of getting funding is very high, because such programs, they always require teaching assistants, even in the university, like someone who would
okay.
teach undergrads. So it's always, almost all the time, comes with funding. So when you apply, you ask to
Oh,
be a teaching assistant or a research assistant. But if you're a health professional, maybe a nurse, a doctor, etc., it's so difficult because, first of all, to be able to touch a patient, you need a license, etc. So such systems are not really in place. But then the easiest for master's students is the teaching assistantship and the um, research assistantship kind of funding. And then when you get to the PhD level also, for PhD, almost all programs in the US come with funding, almost all programs. And then it's also in two ways. Some schools, you just need to submit your application directly to the program, and then you just wait to be called for an interview. Others, you'd have to contact a
okay.
supervisor ahead of time, and that supervisor would need to probably interview you, talk to you, and give you the go ahead to apply. That is expressing his or her willingness to work with you. So with both systems, it's always better if at least you reach out to a professor, because it increases your chances. But with that, one mistake most people do is they try to write to lots of professors. For example, they write to Professor A in a particular school, a particular department, and they do not get a response. Then they just move to Professor B, same thing, no response, Professor C. Now, the problem
Mm.
with that is most professors, even though they might not reply, from experience, they forward your email to the program manager. And so
Oh,
when the program managers get these multiple emails from a particular student to all these professors, they don't take you serious, and the program managers, will not also reply your email. So my advice is that when you are writing to
wow.
professors, always try to write to people whose interests overlap. Don't write to professors who do very divergent things and tell all of them that I'm
Okay.
interested in your work, I've read your work, I want to do this. They would not take you serious.
Okay.
They really interact. The professors interact a lot. You would be surprised that they would mention you to someone, or they'll forward your email to. Sometimes they even forward your emails. It has happened to me before. They forward your emails to the entire faculty members, telling them that I got an email from this student. His CV is attached. Can you consider if you are interested, and let me know so I get back to him? It happened to me once. So if you've written to everyone telling them you're interested in their work, meanwhile they are doing very divergent things, no one will respond to you. So it's
Yeah.
one mistake I think many people do. Yes, and so when you apply to the programs, like I said, with the US, most of the PhD openings would come with funding. So once you get your offer, you would also get funding. The funding can also be in the form of a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, or sometimes can be a fellowship that the school is awarding you. And usually after your first year, whichever professor you decide to work with will take care of your funding after. But usually for the first year, the school takes care of your funding. Then after, your professor takes care of your funding.
Okay, so that means that you're saying that every PhD is like with an automatic scholarship. but it differs. It differs there are two ways to get it. Either you have to go straight to the school level and apply and put your application, or you have to go through professors. So how do you differentiate it? How do you know which school wants words and all that?
Yeah, so
Is it written on the website, or is through googling or something?
all right. So yeah, most PhDs would give you funding, that's for sure. Most PhDs in the US would give you funding. Now, you would have to look at it from the school's website. So let's say I'm interested in vision science in a particular school. I go to that school's website, I check their vision science program. It will be stated there that prior to submitting an application, you need to contact your supervisor, because actually such schools within their application system would ask you which professor you have spoken to or which professor has agreed to work with you. Some schools would ask that in their portal. So such schools have that system, but then if it's a school that doesn't have it, when you read it, you would notice that it's not stated there that you need to write to a professor. You just need to put in your application, and if it's good enough, you'd be called for an interview, and then after that, yeah, everything would come. Yeah.
So it kind of looks like the PhD students are sorted out. So what will you say for the masters? What advice will you give for people who want to come in for masters first?
Right. So yeah, most PhDs like I'm saying are really sorted out. And now the thing about masters is that masters is tricky. And so from experience also, I'll say that if you are thinking about funding, if you want funding, then most likely apply to a federal or state funded school. Don't go for the private schools. So, for example, I mean, it's easier to
Okay.
know which schools are funded by the state or by the federal government. So, for example, there are schools that are named after the states. Let's say maybe Ohio University, maybe University of Alabama, University of Minnesota, those type of schools, University of Idaho, because such schools have a lot of funding because of the additional funding from the government. So they have a lot of opportunities like that to help fund students. So I would advise that if you're really considering funding, then maybe you would have to sometimes drop the private schools and consider these type of schools. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. So what are the common mistakes you have seen people make when they put in applications to come study in the US?
Okay, so yeah, and the common mistakes I'll say is usually from the application material itself. When I look at the CVs people send to me to review, you'd notice that the CVs are sometimes somehow written as if it's for a job, seeking a job, or yeah, because you get people writing uh, maybe career objective to be whatever. They just write the CEO of something, you know. But the thing is, if you are going for a PhD, these people are looking at someone who wants to do something in research, not necessarily in academia. It can be in industry also, but then they want something research oriented. And so, for example, when you're writing your CV, also don't put. I see people putting skills, PowerPoint, Microsoft Office, and those things. And I mean,
Yeah,
people in high school can use those type of softwares. So I
that
would advise that to make yourself very competitive, a software like R is free. You can download it and start learning programming. I mean, you can just download it and start using Excel, trying to analyze some basic data like t-test, etc. And it's just a single code, t-test, blah, 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 and you just do your thing. So you can learn such languages and put it there as a skill. That's better than putting all these Microsoft stuff there. And then also, when you're writing your experiences, write experiences that are or have a direct relationship with the program you want to study. So, for example, if I've worked in the clinic before, or I was working in the clinic and I want to talk about a PhD that has to do with vision science, I would state skills that I have that would be beneficial to even the PA I'm going to work with. Probably he needs someone with that skill to help him, right? So I'll state those skills. So the clinical skills, I'll talk about the equipments I have been exposed to or the equipments I've used in the past, which I know would be something he would want. I'll talk about when you're talking about your courses, you also state courses that are relevant. So if you know you're going to do, let's say, something in optics, you talk about your undergraduate courses that you know have given you the background that would help propel you to succeed in that program. So if you are going to do something in, let's say, optics or physics, and you're talking about sociology and all those kind of things, then you're just making your CV longer, but you're not really making any real point. And also, people shouldn't be obsessed with writing long CVs because these people are very busy. They don't really have time to go through all these. So 2 pages, but you make sure you talk about what you want to talk about. You start with your university degree. You can decide to add your GPA or your CWA to your CV. You can talk about your skills that are relevant to the program you want to pursue. And also, it's good if you can take these free courses like Coursera, these Coursera courses. You can take some of these courses and put it on your CV. It helps you a lot. So that's what I would say about the CV. And then when it comes to your SOP too, and people don't really have much time. They don't spend time to write your statement of purpose. But then from experience, I noticed that, let's be frank, if I'm to submit an application for any opening, right? Those looking at the application do not know me. They've never seen me. They do not know my credentials. All they have are those documents. So you need to market yourself in a way that makes you stand tall. That those documents are very important. People are so obsessed with grades. They think it's all about grades, but at least the different recruiting processes I have seen, the SOPs really count a lot because that is what markets you. There are lots of reasons why people do not make good grades in undergrad, but then it doesn't translate to they being automatic bad students. No. So I think you should also spend a very good amount of time on your SOP. Write very good essays. Talk about the skills you have, what you are bringing on board. Talk about what you want to do in future. That is the type of science you want to do, or how that degree is going to help you achieve that goal. So you need to make your SOP stand tall. And then I think these are the things that really help. Also, another thing I've seen is many people think you need to have a master's before you can go into a PhD, for example. But then that's not the case in the US. In the US, when you write your GRE, that's if the school requires a GRE. Not every school also requires a GRE, but you will find out from their program managers. But if the school doesn't require a GRE, you can finish with a bachelor's in, let's say, chemistry and go straight to a PhD in chemistry. It doesn't matter. You don't need a master's. So you can inquire, because the thing about PhDs in the US is that your first about 2 years is spent taking coursework. So you do virtually what you would have done during your master's, and then your 3 years is for your research. Yes, so you can transition directly from an undergrad to a PhD in the US. You don't necessarily need a master's. So people confuse why you need a master's and a PhD. You can decide to seek a master's degree because you need it for maybe career advancement, maybe you need it for promotion, you need it for something that is really tailored. But if you're thinking about being in academia, being a lecturer, professor, then you certainly require a PhD. And in that case, you don't necessarily need a master's. You can go directly into the PhD. Um, Another thing too about US schools is that if you know you want to go to school, let's say in 2021, you always need to apply the year before. So let's say I want to go to school in fall of 2021. I should be submitting my applications now in 2020 around this time, because most of them would have their deadline somewhere in December. So you should make sure you have all your documents ready probably by September so you can submit an application. Latest by January, February, most schools have closed their applications of the year in which you'll be starting your studies. So many people wait thinking, oh, I need to do it the year before, and then they just miss the deadlines. So that's one thing I think I would also mention.
One mistake. Wow. You've really spoken so many informative things like quality over quantity, not to pack plenty things in your CV and all those things. Because I think it's a common mistake so many people make. We just put so that it gets to 100 pages. Meanwhile, it's not really 100 in the eyes of the person you're sending it to. Well, thank you very much. But do you have like a final word to people watching that are planning, hoping, praying, fasting to go to the USA and school?
Yeah, so my advice is this, um, just go for it. Never be scared. For me, I say that once it's an opportunity, then also explore it. You are equally good to apply. I mean, if it's yours, you'll get it. If it's not yours too, yes, there's no regret. And I'd also say that talk to people who are ahead of you, talk to senior colleagues, talk to people who have done what you are intending to do, because they would be able to guide you. For example, as I'm here, I know of schools that also offer my program. I know of other schools that have funding. I know of other schools who might be doing the type of science you want to do, right? So you talk to other colleagues and they will help shape and direct you to the right schools, which would also give you the opportunity you're looking for. So you try to reach out to your colleagues. Don't be scared. Now today you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook. Reach out to them, talk to them, and I believe you will come across someone who would be kind enough to help you through the process. Don't be scared to talk, because if you don't talk, then you are doing more harm to yourself than good. And also make good use of websites like Find a PhD, scholarship positions, Find a Masters. People usually think some of these scholarships that are posted there are scams, but then it's not true. Most of them are legit, at least from my experience. So make good use of these websites. Go navigate through the different tabs and spend your time to read the information there, because that is the only way you would understand the process. Many people do not want to read. They just want a page where they open and then they just by magic will find an offer. No, you need to go through, the filters. You filter the course you want, you filter the country. You need to take your time and explore these websites, and definitely you'll find what you're looking for. Yeah. So that's my advice.
All right, thank you very much. As talking about read, research, watch videos, and all that, Cyril has a YouTube channel where he basically shines lots of spotlight on scholars around the world, scholarships in US, or scholarships generally, and all that. So you could also try to check his channel out. I'll put the link in the description box that will lead you straight to his channel. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to his channel, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel too. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. See you next time on Chilo Talks. Thank you once again, Cyril, for being on this channel. I
Welcome.
appreciate it. All right,
Welcome.
thank you, guys. Bye for now.
Bye. All right. Yeah.